Die fressen so eine kleine Portion wie dich glatt auf.
Das Boot is one of the most realistic war films ever made. And behind that realism hides a list of strange, dangerous, and unbelievable production secrets. Here are the weird facts that slip beneath the surface. Fact 1.
Ein deutsches Boot! Ein deutsches U-Boot!
The director forced the actors into isolation to make them look tired and mentally drained. But what the cast didn't expect was how far the production would push that idea. They spent weeks locked inside the submarine set with no sunlight, which slowly changed their skin tone, their posture, and even their moods. The crew noticed that after a short time, the actors began speaking less between takes because they were constantly surrounded by metallic walls and tight corridors. The claustrophobia became so real that some actors started sleeping inside the set because walking out felt like stepping into another universe. The director believed their discomfort made the tension on screen completely authentic, and he refused to ease the pressure. By keeping them together day and night, they unknowingly replicated the psychological decay that real U-boat crews experienced. Their clothing wasn't washed, their hair stayed greasy, and their bodies genuinely looked starved of fresh air. Even their laughs sounded different, thinner and strained, which helped shape the eerie tone of the film. Some cast members later admitted they forgot what outdoor silence felt like because the constant echo of metal followed them everywhere. Their mental fatigue became a tool for the camera, with natural reactions replacing rehearsed acting. And by the time shooting wrapped, the cast said they didn't just act the roles, they lived inside the submarine's pressure. Fact 2. The set wasn't a static build. It was designed like a mechanical monster that could tilt, sway, and slam violently to mimic underwater maneuvers. Every time the captain shouted an order, the crew prepared for the entire structure to move, which meant the actors had to learn to shift their balance like trained sailors. The tilting floors weren't gentle either. They were engineered to jerk the actors off their feet so the chaos looked brutally authentic. The camera operators had to strap themselves into harnesses to avoid being thrown across the room whenever the submarine dived. The intense shaking caused props to fly, lights to swing, and actors to crash into each other, resulting in many bruises that ended up on film. The director loved capturing their raw reactions, so he often triggered movements without warning. This unpredictability made survival inside the set a real challenge, and the actors described some scenes as doing stunts inside a metal coffin. Sweat mixed with oil residue on the walls, making every surface slippery, and the camera crew had to constantly wipe lenses because the environment was always shaking or dripping. The claustrophobic space amplified every movement, causing even minor tilts to feel like violent rolls. And because the actors stayed inside during most resets, their bodies adapted to the rocking in a way that made audiences believe these men truly belonged at sea. Fact 3. The production team intentionally created a foul, overpowering smell inside the submarine to simulate the stench real U-boat crews lived with for months. They soaked claws in a mixture of stale water, diesel fumes, and old food, then hid them inside vents and behind pipes. The odor seeped into costumes until the actors couldn't escape it, even during breaks. The director believed the smell would subtly affect their performances, making them irritable and tense without needing to act. As the days went on, the scent grew stronger because the tight walls trapped everything, including sweat and smoke from fake diesel machines. Some actors complained of headaches and nausea, but production refused to remove the smell because it added historical accuracy. Even visitors on set reported coughing as soon as they entered the submarine corridors. The stale air gave every movement a sticky, heavy feeling that settled into their hair and beards. Over time, the cast stopped noticing the smell consciously, but their bodies reacted as if they were living in a confined box filled with exhaust fumes. When filming wrapped, several costumes still smelled so bad that crew members refused to pack them. And because the actors never escaped the odor, Their frustration helped fuel the simmering tension you see on screen. Fact 4. The actors suffered real physical damage while shooting because the submarine set had no padding, no soft edges, and no safety corners. Every pipe and valve was made of real metal, so when the submarine shook, the actors slammed into solid steel without protection. Bruises covered their arms and legs, and some actors chipped teeth when they hit the narrow bulkheads during sudden dives. Knees were constantly scraped because they had to crawl through tight passages dozens of times each day. Their hands blistered from gripping cold metal railings, which were intentionally left unpolished to mimic submarine wear. The director pushed for long takes, forcing them to endure intense physical strain without rest. Some scenes required them to stay hunched in cramped positions that caused their backs to ache for weeks. Even breathing became difficult when smoke effects filled the compartments, creating a choking haze that irritated their throats. Doctors were called more than once because exhaustion caused dizziness that looked like seasickness. And by the end of filming, many actors said they felt broken, stiff, and sore, as if they'd actually served on a U-boat during wartime. Fact 5.
Verdammt hell.
The film's water sequences used real high-pressure cannons that blasted walls and actors with freezing waves, and the results were far rougher than the crew intended. The water hit with such force that several actors were knocked flat onto the slippery metal floor. Because the space was so tight, they couldn't dodge or brace themselves properly, turning every shot into a gamble. The crew pumped in ice-cold water to recreate the shock of seawater flooding a submarine, and the temperature sent shivers through the cast. Some scenes required the actors to stay wet for hours, which made them tremble uncontrollably. Their uniforms absorbed the water and became heavy, adding even more physical strain. The floors flooded quickly, so the actors had to perform while stumbling through ankle-deep pools. The sound of rushing water echoed violently through the metal set, making communication nearly impossible. The director refused to warm the water because he wanted their shocked reactions to be real. At times, the water level rose faster than planned, forcing crew members to pull actors out before they slipped under. And despite the dangers, the footage captured during these chaotic moments became some of the most iconic in the film. Fact 6. The director insisted that every actor learn authentic U-boat procedures so they would move and speak like real submariners without needing stage instructions. They studied naval manuals, practiced emergency drills, and memorized the exact order of commands that would be shouted during dives or attacks. The cast trained with former sailors who drilled them until every motion became instinct. They learned how to operate valves, switches, and periscopes without looking down so the camera could move freely around them. Even their body language was engineered to reflect the cramped, mechanical precision of submarine crews. The actors had to move in sync while squeezing past each other, a skill that required weeks of rehearsal in the narrow corridors. They practiced handling tools, navigating ladders, and rotating through stations the way real U-boat men did under pressure. Some actors admitted that these drills felt like military boot camp, complete with shouted corrections. The production wanted their coordination to look natural, as if the crew had been sailing together for months. Their technical accuracy impressed real submarine veterans who visited the set and confirmed the movements felt authentic. Even minor tasks, like passing a message or adjusting a gauge, had to be performed exactly as it would have been done in 1941. And because the actors executed the motions on instinct, the camera captured a level of realism no script direction could reproduce. Their mastery of procedure helped make the chaos feel controlled, and the control feel suffocating. Fact 7. The characters in Das Boot look constantly sweaty, grimy, and exhausted, and achieving that look required an intensive makeup routine that only grew nastier as filming progressed. Makeup artists coated the actors in layers of fake sweat, mixed with oil-based grime to simulate months without fresh air or showers. The mixture was sticky and attracted dust from the tight set, making the actors feel perpetually dirty. Their skin absorbed the goo throughout the day, causing some to develop rashes and irritation. The makeup team reapplied fresh sweat between takes, so their faces always glistened under the harsh submarine lighting. Even their uniforms were sprayed with diluted oil to give clothing the damp, suffocating texture of life below sea level. The dirt buildup around their necks, hands, and hairlines grew heavier as scenes intensified, forming a look that blurred the line between makeup and real exhaustion. Actors often joked that washing off the grime took longer than filming a scene. Some costumes became so saturated with sweat and dirt that they were never fully cleaned during production. The constant moisture attracted unpleasant smells that clung to the fabric, adding to the authenticity of their discomfort. And as the story darkens, the actor's appearance becomes more disheveled because the makeup team intentionally stopped maintaining continuity to reflect the deterioration of submarine life. Fact 8. To make the submarine battle scenes painfully realistic, the crew planted controlled explosives inside the set that detonated only a few feet from the actors. These charges sent sparks, debris, and bursts of smoke through the cramped compartments, creating shock waves that the cast genuinely felt. The director warned them of general timing, but never the exact moment of detonation to capture authentic reactions. Each blast rattled the metal walls, causing pipes to clang and lights to flicker violently. The confined structure amplified the sound until it felt like an explosion was happening inside their skulls. Some actors stumbled during takes because the shock knocked them off balance. Safety teams monitored every blast, but injuries still happened as shrapnel-like debris bounced around the narrow corridors. The heat from the explosions caused the set temperature to spike, choking the actors with hot smoke. Fire extinguishers were kept just off camera in case sparks ignited equipment. The director believed the danger forced the actors to behave with genuine panic, giving the attack scenes their unforgettable intensity. And although the explosions were controlled, the cast said they never truly felt safe when they heard the countdown begin. Fact 9.
You remember these shots?
I remember that.
You remember the shots here?
Oh, yes.
And I was really...
To navigate the impossibly tight submarine corridors, the crew built a custom camera rig that could slide, duck, and weave through the set like a living creature. Traditional equipment was far too large, so engineers designed a rail system that allowed the camera to glide smoothly without bumping into the walls. The rig could shift height quickly, mimicking the frantic way sailors moved through the sub. The cinematographer even strapped himself to the camera during certain shots to operate it with precision while running. This created a handheld feel without the shakiness that would ruin the realism. The tight space forced the crew to move in perfect coordination, often squeezing together like puzzle pieces to fit behind the lens. Actors had to time their movements carefully so they didn't collide with the camera during takes. The new rig made it possible for long, uninterrupted shots that followed characters through narrow compartments with unnerving intimacy. This approach gave audiences the sense of being trapped inside the submarine with the crew. The innovation became so influential that later filmmakers cited Das Boot as inspiration for confined space cinematography. And because the camera became a silent character, it amplified the film's claustrophobia in a way no other war movie had achieved. Fact 10.
Im Dock noch ein besonderer Befund? Ja, am Steuerbordschrauben, Flügel verbogen!
The production built a full-size replica of a German U-96 that genuinely floated on open water. It was constructed from real steel, making the vessel heavy and difficult to maneuver during filming. The replica behaved like an actual submarine, rolling with waves that nearly threw actors off balance. The massive size required tugboats to tow it into position whenever the crew needed a specific angle. Stormy conditions made filming dangerous, with wind and water blasting across the deck. Actors had to climb the conning tower while the boat rocked violently beneath them. From a distance, bystanders believed they were seeing a real wartime U-boat. Filming on the open sea added unpredictable environmental challenges that enhanced the realism on screen. The boat groaned under pressure, creating natural sound effects that the audio team loved. The director insisted on using the real ocean instead of a tank to keep every shot organic. Working on the vessel left the actors drenched, cold, and exhausted. These conditions made their performances more authentic, and the full-scale U-boat remains one of the film's most impressive engineering feats. Fact 11. The cast had to grow real beards throughout the entire production to capture the unkempt look of submarine life. Their facial hair became greasy, tangled, and uneven, amplifying the sense of weeks without sunlight. The beards absorbed sweat and makeup, causing itchy irritation that affected their performances. Makeup artists enhanced the grime, but never shaped the hair, allowing natural deterioration. The smell of the set even clung to their beards, making them unpleasant during long days. Some actors joked their beards felt like separate characters. Continuity was abandoned because the director wanted the evolving facial hair to reflect the passage of time. The beards altered how the actors spoke and moved, adding authenticity to their roles. Their constantly growing hair helped sell the physical decline of the crew. Removing the beards after filming felt shocking to many of them. Several said it was like shedding months of emotional weight. The natural appearance added raw realism to the close-up shots, and the beards became a defining visual element of the film's gritty style. Fact 12. The sleeping quarters were built with painfully accurate dimensions that left actors barely enough space to move. Bunks were so close together that many hit their heads when sitting up. The set forced the cast to crawl and twist their bodies awkwardly just to lie down. Actors rotated beds just like real submariners who shared sleeping spaces. The stale air and artificial odors made the compartments feel disturbingly real. The thin mattresses caused physical discomfort that built up over weeks. Filming required absolute stillness, so any shift risked disrupting an entire scene. The tight layout increased tension among the cast during long shoot days. Even between takes, the quarters felt coffin-like. The camera squeezed inside the room, eliminating any sense of privacy. This realism helped the actors portray emotional exhaustion. Their physical discomfort naturally translated to the screen, and the set became one of the most notorious parts of the production. Fact 13. Das Boot was filmed almost entirely in chronological order, allowing the actors to deteriorate alongside their characters. As weeks passed, their fatigue, frustration, and stress became genuine. Their faces thinned, movements slowed, and voices grew hoarse. The director wanted their emotional decline to feel natural rather than scripted. Makeup requirements decreased because the cast organically looked worn down. This method deepened the cast's bond as they experienced the storyline's tension in real time. The pressure built steadily, mirroring the submarine crew's psychological unraveling. Long shooting days intensified the effect, blurring the line between acting and reality. Actors said the timeline made them feel trapped in the submarine for real. Their reactions to intense scenes became raw and spontaneous. The continuity strengthened the film's immersive realism, and by the end, the cast looked as broken as their characters. Fact 14. The interior set was built so authentically narrow that even the camera frequently became trapped. Operators had to contort themselves into painful positions just to follow the actors. Several takes were ruined when equipment got wedged between pipes and walls. The cinematographer often squeezed through gaps with barely an inch to spare. Parts of the camera were padded to prevent damage when it collided with steel. Filming became a choreographed dance between camera crew and cast actors, learned to move in sync with the lens to avoid accidental collisions. The cramped design amplified the claustrophobic tone of the movie. Whenever the camera scraped the walls, the sound added to the realism. Operators sometimes emerged bruised after navigating the tight corridors. The struggle to film inside the set created natural tension on screen. This difficulty gave the camera a frantic, immersive personality, and many signature shots exist only because the team fought the submarine's confined space. Fact 15. To capture the terrifying creaks of a submarine under pressure, the sound team recorded real metal being bent and dragged. They used hydraulic presses to force steel plates until they squealed. Old ship engines provided deep, resonant vibrations for ambient tones. The designers layered these recordings to give the submarine a living presence. High-pitched groans mimicked the hull reaching its breaking point. Metal pipes were struck to recreate sudden clanks in the darkness. The sounds were unnerving, even in the studio, making the mix sessions tense. The audio created a psychological weight that audiences felt subconsciously. Each creak hinted at the danger of crushing depth. The constant noise amplified the film's tension. The submarine felt fragile and haunted, and the soundscape became one of Das Boot's most celebrated achievements. Fact 16. The director used extremely low lighting to mimic the dim, oppressive environment of a real submarine. Actors performed scenes where they could barely see each other's faces. Navigating the set became hazardous because of hidden metal edges. Their eyes strained constantly, adding real tension to their expressions. The camera had to be adjusted to pick up subtle highlights from gauges and lamps. Shadows swallowed entire sections of the sub, creating a suffocating atmosphere. The darkness made the actors rely on instinctive movements. Even simple tasks became disorienting under such minimal light. The director wanted viewers to feel submerged in gloom. The low visibility created panic during chaotic scenes. Actors sometimes stumbled because their depth perception failed. The claustrophobia increased with every dimly lit sequence, and the darkness became one of the film's strongest psychological tools. Fact 17. Several surviving U-boat veterans were brought in to coach the cast on authentic behavior. They explained how men spoke, moved, and reacted during crisis situations. Their stories shaped the emotional tone of the script. Veterans corrected body language to match wartime discipline. They shared harrowing details about fear, exhaustion, and monotony. Actors learned how to hold themselves during silent patrols. The crew integrated the veterans' insights into set design and sound. Authentic terminology and routines came directly from their memories. These advisors ensured no Hollywood cliches slipped through. Their presence added emotional weight to the production. Some actors said hearing their stories was unsettling. The veterans praised the film's accuracy as filming progressed, and their involvement helped shape Das Boot's legendary realism. Fact 18. Das Boot's immense length and complexity demanded nearly a full year to edit. The footage included countless takes shot in tight corridors. Piecing scenes together required precise timing to maintain tension. The sound mix alone took months due to layered effects. Dialogue had to compete with engines, explosions, and metal groans. The editing team built a rhythm that mirrored the submarine's pulse. Every cut needed to reinforce claustrophobia. Scenes were rearranged repeatedly to heighten emotional progression. The director obsessively refined pacing. Even small moments were scrutinized frame by frame. Long takes were preserved to maintain immersion. The slow, methodical post-production shaped the film's identity, and the final product reflected the intensity of an equally intense edit. Fact 19. Jürgen Prochnow took on the role with a seriousness that influenced the entire cast. His calm authority helped shape the film's tense atmosphere. The director encouraged him to project internal pressure without emotional outbursts. Prochnow stayed in character between takes to maintain focus. His subtle gestures became cues for the rest of the cast. Other actors gravitated toward him instinctively, mirroring submarine hierarchy. His presence stabilized chaotic scenes. Crew members described him as the film's gravitational center. His stoic performance grounded the story in realism. The cast relied on his energy during long, exhausting days. His leadership bled naturally into the role. Prochnow became synonymous with the U-boat commander archetype, and his portrayal remains one of the film's defining elements. Fact 20. The climactic moment required the cast to perform in freezing rain and strong winds. The weather hammered the set relentlessly, soaking the actors to the bone. The director refused to halt filming because the chaos added authenticity. The storm made movement difficult and visibility poor. Actors struggled to maintain balance on slippery surfaces. Their shivering wasn't acting. It was the real cold. Water blasted into their faces with painful force. Equipment malfunctioned due to the wet conditions. Everyone on set described the sequence as physically brutal. but the footage captured raw emotion impossible to fake. The weather became part of the scene's intensity. The misery shaped the cast's performances. And the realism of the finale is partly due to nature's fury.